In agriculture, our water supply, as it becomes more precious, a lot of growers have switched to drip or micro sprinklers to irrigate their crops. There is an important part of that puzzle that you have to take into consideration, and that is drip line or micro sprinkler maintenance. Just because a drip emitter is its output is 0.42 gallons per hour doesn't mean that it's always dripping 0.42. You got to keep the pathway clean, and we'll look over that. But there's some important things you can do. In drip irrigation, there's three main issues you're going to deal with. First one's going to be algae control, and that's going to vary on the year. Temperature of the irrigation water being delivered to you. Second, if you're on a deep well, or any well for that matter, it's going to be bicarbonate, which is calcium carbonate. It's the same type of material that dries in your shower after you take a shower on the glass. It's the same thing in drip. And the third thing is most important is silt. And all surface waters, any of the canal waters, do have silt in the water. The only way to deal with silt in your drip irrigation is with proper filtration. And if you have a silt problem in the field, you've got to improve your filtration at this level right here. So as you can see at this location, this is a hop field. This irrigation station here probably irrigates about 60 acres. And we have several things going on, and I just wanted to point out a few of them. One is we have fertilizer tanks that we use and fill, and we usually do different materials here throughout the year. So we have two of those. We have 1,000 gallons of storage here. The other things we have is we have a diaphragm pump down here, which you can see is connected to this tank right now. And so this diaphragm pump is calibrated, and it's also interlocked with the irrigation system. So if for some reason the irrigation pump right over here, if it shuts off, the injection pump will also shut off. That eliminates the material to actually get into the main line when there's not water running. And there's some safety features here. We have a sight tube so the grower can always know, and you can follow your sight of how much you're applying by day. So we have that's kind of handy. But over here is an important thing. So you got the incoming material coming to the diaphragm pump. From there, the pressure is coming here, and you can see that it's being injected right here into the main line. The clean irrigation water is coming this way. We're injecting right here, goes to a secondary filter, then to the field. And right here, this part right here is called a check valve. This check valve it's law. You have to have one of these. And what that does, it's a safety feature that does not allow the water from the irrigation system to backflow up back to your fertilizer tank. So it's a safety feature. So essentially what's happening inside here is every time that pump is pulsing, it's opening up a spring-loaded deal. So it's like a ch, 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 ch inside the main line. And so and when the pump is not stroking and pushing in, it's sealing itself every time, kind of like valves on a car engine. It's working. So that's an important feature. This is a bleeder valve. We use this for priming the pump. If there's air in this line, you take a little container here, you crack this valve here, and it'll bleed all the air out, and then the pump will start pumping. And then we return that to the tank. So we don't have any spills or anything. The other thing I wanted to point out too is GS Long feels that anything that's going to be put into the irrigation system, injected or fertilizer or line cleaner or anything, always goes through at least an 80 mesh filter. So it comes out of the tank, it's filtered, goes to the pump to the main line. And depending on the products we're using or the program we're using, we want this to make sure there's no contaminants that get in the tank that can plug our small diaphragm pump before it gets into there. So this is a must. We have them on every tank we inject out of. I also wanted to explain a little something about the drip irrigation hose itself. You can see we're in a hop field, of course, but this hose we're using, it's a single drip line hose. You can see there's an emitter right here. This particular field is a 24-inch emitter spacing. Each emitter is 0.42 gallon output, gallons per hour output. And this is what we call pressure compensating hose, meaning the emitters are built inside the hose. This type of hose can run up and down hills and the pressure and volume should not decrease. This is what most people run in drip irrigation now. But inside this hose, there's an internal emitter, and it looks like a rectangular passageway, has a diaphragm. You peel the diaphragm back, and inside the hose, right in here, it's probably about, I'd say probably maybe 1.25 inches long. There's a zigzag pathway. And within that zigzag pathway is we can get silt, we can get algae, we can get hard water deposits depending on what our water source is. And that is what causes the issue of plugging. So you have to keep that water passageway clean. And it all starts over there at the drip system with a program that we can develop for you. It's one of the most important things with drip irrigation. We're dealing with a small passageway. We don't have a lot of margin for error. Drip line maintenance is very important when you're using drip or even micro sprinkler. Micro sprinklers aren't quite as bad, but they do have a small passageway where the water is being emitted, and it can plug quickly when not attended to properly. So drip line maintenance is an important aspect of using drip for irrigation. Another important aspect is within drip is, people think, well, it's dripping water, but is this emitter dripping 0.42 gallons per hour? Yeah, there's tests you can do. People put cans underneath it and measure different emitters in the field, but it might only be dripping at 0.35. Is that adequate? And that's why drip line maintenance is very important to maintain. You want to make sure that this emitter is dripping its full volume.